Are you looking to expand your aesthetic practice and attract high-quality new patients? Discover the power of digital marketing in growing your practice with a personalized strategy session. Schedule your meeting today by visiting www.businessofesthetics.org/MSM and take the first step towards transforming your practice with the potential of digital marketing.
Welcome to another captivating installment of the Business of Aesthetics. My name is Dana Zeitler. I'm a physician assistant and MEDSPA owner of Deluxe MEDSPA in Naples, Florida. And before we immerse ourselves to the riches of today's episode, I want to express our gratitude to our incredible listeners. Your willingness to embrace and share this podcast allows our community to grow and serve others. Your unwavering dedication is the cornerstone of our success, and we can't thank you enough. So today, I am thrilled and honored to have Dr. Lonny Green of Revie Aesthetics in Richmond, Virginia. The title of today's episode is The One Thing You Must Have for Wild Med Spa Success. Lonny is known on Instagram as Ninja Injector. He is both medical director and an injector at Revie. He has a Bachelor of Science from Stanford, a medical degree from UCLA, an MBA from the University of St. Thomas, and did his residency at Harvard. Revie Aesthetics began in 2015 on the mission to help others feel confident in their skin. And so, Lonny, without further ado, I wanted you to share, ever since, actually, I have to do a little backstory. Ever since I did our workshop together in Dallas in September at Aesthetic Next, I've wanted to do a podcast with you. And so please share, what is the one thing you must have for wild med spa success?
Well, thank you, and I can't wait to share it, but I must first thank Business of Aesthetics for inviting me. I'm honored and humbled, and I must thank you, Dana, because you are a positive, affirmative, shining light in this profession, and I truly value you and our relationship, so I wanted to thank you personally.
Well, I'm super excited about our conversation today because I think we both feel it in our heart. So please share a little bit about, what this just cause is for businesses and why business owners should think about it.
Sure. Well, let me just lay the groundwork of what wild success is, because it can mean different things to different people. And I will tell you that probably many people would like to achieve great revenue growth, great profit, just be known as the place in town. And I do think this will take you there. To me, wild success is having a place where you and everyone with whom you work and your patients just absolutely love it and feel like they're so lucky and there's nowhere else they'd rather be. So both of those things are possible. And I think without what I'm going to share, I suppose you could achieve it, but I don't know. I think that you could always be good and do well, but the top, I think 1% are going to need to do this. So the thing is, as you mentioned it, it's something called your just cause, and it's a term that I'm a big fan of Simon Sinek. I've been very influenced by him, and he's where I learned it from. And I will just start by saying, if I can't interact with the guests, I wish I could, but I'm going to challenge them right now. I want whoever is listening to my voice, I want you to think of do you have a mission statement? Do you have a mission and vision statement? And I'm going to challenge you right now to say your mission statement. Now, that's without looking at your notes or anything else. Can you tell me your mission statement? And God forbid, can you tell me your mission and vision statement? And if you are among the very few who actually can recite your mission statement offhand to me, the next question is, if I walked up to every single member who is in your MEDSPA, every team member, can they tell me your mission statement? So I like the term just cause instead of a mission and vision statement. A mission statement that you have that's either in a handbook, somewhere in a drawer under a bunch of papers, or even if it's written on your wall, if you can't tell me your mission statement, if everyone can't tell me their mission statement, you don't have a mission statement. You have something you spend time on, came up with something very nice, but you need a just cause. Why do you need what is a just cause? Why do you need it? Well, the reason you need it is because if you want to be wildly successful, you need to know about the word inspire, okay? Because you are now a leader. And if you can inspire your team and furthermore, inspire every patient who walks through your door, then it will be a complete game changer. And it just, I can't even tell you what it does. Why do you need to inspire your team? Because if you can motivate your team, okay? And you can motivate them with incentives, pay, lunches, and they will work very, very hard for you, okay? They really will. They'll work very hard if you motivate them the right way. But you know, when a headhunter calls and they have something even better offer, or a higher salary, or better hours, they will seriously consider that. However, if you inspire your team, if they are inspired by you, if they're inspired by what you stand for, what they're trying to achieve every day, they won't even take that headhunter's call. They can't even imagine leaving because there's a difference between happiness and fulfillment. And if you can, you know, giving them money and having lunches and team med spa retreats, that will make people happy. And happy is great, but happy is dopamine. Dopamine is something we get, and it doesn't last forever. It doesn't stay around. So, you know, when you get that raise, then you kind of want another raise. You know, there's always something more. If you looking to buy a house, you get that house, then you're thinking, God, it would be nice to have a second house or a bigger house. But fulfillment, inspiring someone gives them fulfillment, and fulfillment is serotonin. And serotonin lasts. It doesn't go away. So you can have your team can have a brutal hard day, working double, whatever, a really hard day. And if they're simply motivated, they go home and they're pretty beat and they don't feel great. If they are inspired by what you do and believe in your just cause, even the hardest day, they will still feel fulfilled. They may not feel happy, but they will feel fulfilled because they're on a mission for the just cause. Let's talk about a just cause. A just cause is something that it's a specific vision of a future that does not yet exist, but that you are all pulling in the same direction to create it. And there are some factors about a just cause, but it's something that it's so important to everyone who believes in it that you're willing to sacrifice just about everything for it. And you know you'll never get there, but you will never, ever stop trying. Yeah, I can tell you more about some of the factors about a just cause, but I feel like I've spoken too long.
No, this is such great information, and it's so true. You want staff that will stick by you through thick and thin. And it is, you know, that driving, like they can't wait to get to work, or yes, they've had a hard day, but they loved being here because the whole business is on a mission to, I know your is being confident in your skin, or making every person on the planet confident in your skin. And I think that that's super powerful, and breaking it down to that one sentence that everybody in your business knows. It's really hard. It is not an easy thing to achieve. And I know you're going to talk more about, you know, your culture and leadership, but it speaks to my heart because hats off to being able to do such a great job with your team.
Well, thank you. Look, when we first started, I got into this by accident, a very fortunate accident after a career as a surgeon. Anyway, I didn't know what I was doing as a business owner. I just wanted to help patients in a certain way. I had I did the offsite, did the mission statement, had it into 2 pages. Every year it seemed like it would get shorter and shorter. And finally, it just got it got really short. It got 3 words: to help others. But that still wasn't enough. And as I learned about a just cause, it really resonated with me. It's we go to work every day to create a world where everyone wakes up confident in their own skin. Will we ever get there with everyone in the world? No, no. But we will never stop trying. And a just cause, for those who want to figure out their just cause, you mentioned we went to the workshop and we talked about finding your why. This is totally related. The difference is, as if you're the leader, you're the MEDSPA owner, you absolutely should try to find your why. But you can't just find your why. It's a process, and you're never really done. And I could talk for 8 hours, as you know, about finding your why. I think it's one of the most important things you can do with your life. And by the way, just so I know, in case I never talk to your audience again, you only have one why, and you don't get to choose it. Okay, and it's pretty much fully formed by the time of your late teens. And please, you do not have a personal why and a business why. It doesn't work that way. Your why is your root passion of why you do everything in your life. And it can't be different. And you don't get to choose it. I'm sorry. So maybe we'll talk about that later. But let's talk about a just cause. A just cause has to be a couple of things. It has to be resilient, meaning it can't be, your just cause can't work now, but then politics change and the world changes and it changes. It must be resilient to political fame and fortune, whatever happens. It's got to be inclusive. It's got to be something that everyone can do. I'm going to go back to mission statements. People have mission statements. Our mission is to be the premier med spa delivering services in whatever state you're in. How many people want to sacrifice their weekend? It's just that it doesn't work that way. So it has to be inclusive, because if your mission, for instance, if you're an engineering company, your mission is to create the greatest ball bearings for any company, then the people at the front desk don't really feel involved, because it's mainly the engineers. So it has to include everyone, and it has to be of service. It must be of service to others. It can't be something like, because, a just cause where you want your med spa to be the best in the state of Virginia, that's not helping everyone. Who cares about you? People care about themselves. So it has to be of service, and it has to be affirmative. It has to stand for something. It can't be against things. It has to be for something. And the last thing is, it's got to be big and it's got to be bold. Look at the people who fought the British to make this country independent, and they declared in the Declaration of Independence, they said, we hold that all men are created equal. That's big, that's bold. And let me tell you something, I know at the time it was all white men. They had a lot of problems, I grant you that. But if you look at the history of what that inspired people in our country, women got the vote, slaves were emancipated. We have a long way to go, and we will never fully get where everyone is equal, but we're trying. We are trying, and we'll never stop trying, and that's what sets, I believe, America apart from other places. So I think that, again, and let me say this, you also need to inspire your patients, because here's a little shocker, okay? I'm going to tell you guys who own med spas, you do not want every patient who can benefit from your services. You don't. You only want the patients who believe what you believe. And if you do that, you will have patients who aren't just happy with you, they are raving fans, they are your tribe. And you can motivate patients with sales, like a discount and special of the month. Motivation is manipulating people. And I'm not saying that in a negative way. It's not negative to manipulate people, because you change behavior, and it's fair. But the problem with sales and everything else is they will leave you for the next place that has a sale.
Yep.
Yeah, but if you inspire your patients, they won't go anywhere else, because the just cause that you have. My team doesn't have my just cause or Ravi's just cause. Everyone who believes what we believe, it becomes their just cause. And the same thing with your patients. They want to, and we can talk about branding, but they believe in your just cause. And I drive a Jeep Rubicon Wrangler. It's lifted. It's got, I mean, it looks like it belongs to either a teenage kid or a guy with a midlife crisis, okay? And my family bought it for me. Why do I drive a Jeep? It's uncomfortable, I'm going to admit, you know, and because I identify with, I want to be a Jeep. You know what a Jeep Wrangler people say. Why do people have Harley Davidson tattooed on their arm? That's crazy. They're tattooing a brand on their arm. It has nothing to do with the motorcycle. It's not about the motorcycle. They want people to know they ride a Harley Davidson because what it stands for, independence, maverick, you know, rebel. And so it all ties in. If you have a just cause that inspires people, inspires the patients, they will do that, and it transcends everything else. And there's I'm passionate about it because I came to town and the MedSpa part got started in like 2017, 18. It was before everything exploded. There was a couple of med spas in town. There was dermatologists and plastic surgeons. And then this guy who was a female urologist for like 20 years has a med spa. What the hell? That's a whole nother story. But fast forward like 5 years later, we went from a 1,200 square foot in a rundown strip mall to 2,400 square feet. We are now in a 6,000 square foot building at the corner of a major intersection, and the other med spas are the same as they were. What the hell is a female urologist doing with this wild success? Has nothing to do with me, has nothing to do with how good our services are. Those have to be good. It's because we give back. It has nothing to do. It's not about the Botox. What we do is nothing about the Botox. And I tell my team that all the time. That's why we go out in the community. We volunteer at farms. Because if your just cause is to create a world where everyone's confident in your own skin, it can't end at your door. We want to help people be confident in food supply. We want to help people be confident when they're domestic violence victims. It doesn't end at your door. It's not about the Botox.
I love it. And I also, that reminds me of that golden circle that you talked about, where, people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. And I think it's what, how, and then the why is in the center of that bullseye. So it really brings it full circle back to that golden circle that you talked about during our workshop together.
That's exactly right. I'm glad. I love what you said. You are so correct. People don't buy what you do; they buy why you do it. And if you are a med spa that has lots of sales, lots of discounts, and just whatever, then they're buying what you do. Mm-hmm. And that's what I mean by saying you don't want to treat every patient, because your patients who love you, they're just. Some patients are more challenging than others, and you just have a different set. And I can't tell you how it's transformed our culture. And, we really are very fortunate. And I love doing it. I feel like, that's why I said at the beginning, my definition of success, I'm not a great businessman. Luckily, I have a wonderful practice manager. She's like, have you looked at anything about finances? So I'm going to admit it. I could, but it's not what drives me. I am so wildly successful because I can't wait to get there. I can't wait to do what I do and all the other stuff I do. That's what's important to me.
Well, I think that inspiration goes beyond just your staff and your patients, because, I personally have been inspired by you. And I think people who have found you on Instagram have been inspired, and you have made the aesthetics world a better world with what you've shared. And that's one of the reasons I'm so excited about this podcast. But you brought up something about culture, and I want to kind of dive into that just a little bit. Because I think for some people, that culture, or making that culture in your business, is not that easy. So maybe some tips on really building your business for culture, hiring for culture. Can you talk to that just a little bit?
Sure. I love that. I'm glad you asked me that. So it's related to just cause. So what you have to do is you have to hold up your flag all the time to your team and to your patients. So I'll give you an analogy, and this is how you create the culture. If I told you to go out in the street in your town and find everyone who believes in that anti-aging is not a bad thing, right? You would have a hard time walking around. You'd have to ask everyone. But if I told you everyone who believes that is wearing a red hat, you would have no problem, right? So when you hold up a flag of what you believe in, what your just cause in, and what's important to you, then you attract the people who to work for you who are but they have to know. That's why you need social media. But you also, with your team, you asked about building a culture. You have to talk about your just cause. You have to emphasize it, not every month, every week, every day. It has to permeate everything you do. So that helps create a culture. Creating the culture is the first thing I would say is you have to have a culture of trust. A trusting, if you don't have a trusting culture, then you cannot be successful in the long term, at least not successful the way I call it. And so, but the problem is, I can't go in and say, okay, guys, by next week, I want everyone to trust me. It doesn't work that way. You have to live it. You have to, you have to walk the walk, talk the talk. Everything has to be there. And it involves a couple of things. One is, and by the way, it is required, but it's not sufficient. So you have to have a trusting culture, but it's not the only thing that's necessary. What relates to a trusting culture is, for me, which I've become much better at, is to periodically tell my team how I've really effed up and I screwed up, And so if you can't be vulnerable as a leader, they will never be vulnerable with you, and they'll hide mistakes, and they'll come to work and they'll lie, cheat, hide, and fake. Not because they're bad people, because they're worried they're going to get penalized. But the more you can come and say, God, guys, I really screwed up here, and I'm really sorry. So you have to be vulnerable. And if you haven't read the book Extreme Ownership, I recommend everyone to read it. It has a lot of military things, so some people don't relate to it, but Extreme Ownership, the bottom line with that book is, and I believe this fully, whenever something goes wrong in the med spa, it's my fault, okay? It is my fault. Ultimately, that if you go down the chain, I didn't train them enough, I didn't emphasize it. I own that, okay? And once you own that, people will own their own stuff, and you just got to, and I have found, here's a little ninja tip for people who are med spa owners. If you have something that you want, that someone didn't do right, okay, and you want to talk to them to give them feedback and bring it up, I have now start every single conversation this way. First thing I say is, hey, listen, I want to talk to you about this, and I really screwed up here. I didn't give the right training ultimately, or I didn't reinforce this, so I really take ownership of this. And here's what I saw you do, and can you give me some insight about that? You immediately change the conversation. If you say, hey, there's something you didn't do right, I just want to talk to you about it. It's not a big deal. I want to talk to you about it. The defenses go up, and their mindset is different. But if you start by saying you own this, but you want to understand so we can make this better, completely different conversation.
So you're curious, you're asking curious questions as to what you can do to help them. Is
Yeah,
that what you're saying?
yes, you're not letting them off the hook. You mentioned what they did and why it was wrong, but ultimately they know that you're not coming at them and you're taking some ownership of this. They'll be much more willing to be vulnerable, that you're not after them. And just psychologically, they're good people, but when you tell someone you're going to talk something they did wrong, they immediately have defenses up. It's a different mindset. And so, and you can't be bullshit. You got to believe it. I do believe that ultimately it is on me. Ultimately, I think when you do the chain of command, now you're always going to you may have some bad actors, some bad people. We recently had to let someone go. But as I contemplate it, maybe I could have, maybe this person was a victim mentality, but maybe had I had a million hours in a day, I could have worked with them better. Maybe I could have, my job, if you're a leader, your job is not to be in charge, you know? Your job is to take care of those in your charge. And, I tell my team all the time, my number one priority is not my patients. It is not my patients. My number one priority is to take care of my team. And they know that. If I take care of my team, they will take care of the patients. But you have to take care of your team.
I love that. I love that. If you take care of your team will take care of your patients. So it really is back to full circle. And the other thing that you mentioned that I want to touch on is that trust. I think that's really, really important. I we try, trust is one of our core values where, we have each other's back and we trust each other that we're going to also, I'm going to learn from my mistakes, and I make mistakes every single day, and I come in and I'm like, oops, I learned from this one again. I won't do that one again, or I'll try not to do it again. But trust with your patients too is really, really important. I think part of our success in Florida, or me with my patients, is that they really trust me. They trust that I'm going to be honest with them. And I think it's important, talking about staff. I don't talk about staff and honesty that often, but it's the same thing. It all comes full circle for sure.
Yeah, and look, it ebbs and flows. I lost some trust not long ago, and we had a good heart-to-heart meeting, and I realized that I was falling down on transparency, partly because sometimes I just do stuff that I don't even know why I'm doing it, so it's hard to verbalize why. I just know it's the right vision. I go a lot by my gut. But part of it, as they told me, as it came out, because there was tension, I reflected on it heavily, and I really had to admit that I wasn't fully transparent with them about what I was doing because I was afraid of failure. In other words, my new thing this year is really transparent, and so I have been writing a book for a number of years now, and part of what I'm doing now at this little retreat I'm having is to really get it going, and I will commit it to finish this year. But I didn't tell people about it because I was kind of worried that what if I don't do it, And I also have a podcast and I have a YouTube channel, but I was away from the med spa, and people were sort of like, what's he doing, And I should have just upfront told them my vision of because I love being in the med spa, I love being with them, but I now am driven to really educate and give back to this profession. I'm so thankful to be here. So, it's a journey.
Well, now you've put it out in the universe that you're working on this book. So you talk about holding yourself accountable. That's a whole lot of accountability. I have dreams also someday of even considering writing a book, but it's way off in the future. I'm happy hosting for Business of Aesthetics podcast. I'd love to do my own podcast someday too. So we have that in common. Anyway, I wanted to get back to the leadership. So it sounds like the advice that you have for leadership is really this inspiration to your team on the just cause, like kind of summarizing it down to the basics. And that just cause is ideally a one sentence mission that the whole team is on together. And you live that, breathe it, talk it every single day. If your team member asks you a question, you're going to be like, yes, of course. For us, we have a core value of remarkable. I'm like, okay, what's the remarkable thing to do? What's the honest thing to do? Because those are our core values. So do you kind of do something similar with your team?
You hold up every single thing, every decision you make, every single thing, and you ask that question: is this the right thing to advance our just cause? Is this going to help create a world where everyone feels confident in their own skin? Everyone means the team too.
You're taking it in step further. So I need to work on that. So I love that advice.
Well, I think it has to be memorable, and it has to be something people can say, and it has to be something that your patients may not say the phrase, but they know what you stand for. You know, we spend a ton of energy and money. Every year we have an end of summer party and we have a holiday party. I got the inspiration from Min Aesthetics, from Matt Toronto and Kathy Toronto, and we used to do it a certain way where we would also have our biggest sale of the year. And I got to the point where I realized it's not what it's about. So what we do is we have a, I mean, it's huge. Now it's 2 tents, it's live music, it's vendors, we have entertainment. We get local businesses so we can promote them. And we pay for the entire thing. We pick out a nonprofit that we want to support. We've supported domestic violence victims, this most recent one, Safe Harbor, third time. We've homeless shelters that take in women with kids, because most of them don't. And we've done a bunch of those, and we pay for the event, we put our energy, and we help promote awareness to them, and we donate a bunch of money to them, because it is just, again, does that help create a world where everyone's confident in their own skin? Well, the answer is yes. And if we bring in a product that we don't really believe in, even though we spend a ton of money, you know, does that promote a world where everyone is confident in their own skin? No, we have to throw out the inventory. It doesn't work. And if you do that, in all honesty, that's it, you know, that's the game.
Love it. Love it. And I also, preparing for this podcast, I went to your website and I saw all the charity and giving back that you do for your community. And it's really beautiful to see. So, you know, you're doing a really wonderful thing for the industry and for your community. So thank
Yeah,
you.
well, thank you. It is my one favorite thing. You know, I was in big organizations in surgery, you know, 30-person groups, and now that I am in this position, it is the single greatest thing I get to do.
Anyway, so to wrap up, we probably should wrap up. Let's talk about back to the let's summarize in a nutshell, to be wildly successful, what's the final piece of advice that you would give med spa business owners in either starting, running, or changing their practice for the better?
Here's your homework. Throw out your mission statement. If you have a vision statement, throw it out. Consider what you believe in to be a just cause, something so just, so right that you would sacrifice anything for it. You. And it must be resilient, inclusive, of service, affirmative, and big and bold. You need to come up with that in a sentence, you know, and you have to do that, because until you're clear on that, you can't sell it to the team and to the patients. But if you really believe it and you're willing to live that, then you need to talk about it, tell your team, you need to make it something they need to know. They need to know that. They need to be able, when you walk up to them, they need to be able to recite it. And it's a process. Don't be impatient, because people need time to digest it. They need time, but you have to live it. If they see you living it every day and you tell them that there's no right just cause, but it should have those factors. So Monday morning, if you come up with it, great, start promoting it. If you don't, then figure it out within hopefully a couple of weeks, but put it out there, commit, and make sure that I can't tell you enough. Do you have to say it all the time? Yes, this is part of being a leader, you know, and is it going to cause some friction or trouble sometime? Yeah, leadership is lonely. And if you're not ready to give away all the credit, take all the blame, and be lonely, don't be a leader.
Love it. Love it. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Lonny Green, for joining us today and talking to us about your journey and your pearls for success. Please tell the listeners where they can learn more about you, get in contact with you, and all of that information.
That would be my pleasure, because nothing brings me more pleasure than getting DMs and messages from people. I love it. I talk about it a lot. And so please reach out to me. Instagram @Ninja Injector. Ninja Injector. have an educational YouTube channel that we've started this year where I think we provide value. It's free. So that's an amazingly crazy creative name called Ninja Injector. I've got a podcast I've been working on for almost 2 years. We're going to drop the first episode in the next 2 months. It's called Profiles, Aesthetic Edition. And I can't even tell you, I mean, you know, Rana, Shakira, we've had some great people on. I mean, I have learned more than they've learned. But anyway, it's not going to be your regular podcast. I don't ask people what trends they think are great or how they got started. People can look that up, and everyone else. This is about who they are, what has shaped them, where they've screwed up. It's pretty deep. I just sent someone Rana's thing. It's a long story, but she just sent me Instagram about how I made her cry, and she wants me to cut it out, but I'm not cutting it out. Anyway, that's the podcast, Profiles, Aesthetic Edition. That'll be on YouTube. It's a video one, and it'll be on all the platforms. I cannot wait for that to come out. And then, you know, I'll be speaking. I've been very fortunate. I'll be at CBAM, my first international gig. Anyway, I just reach out to me. Honestly, Ninja Injector, send me a DM. I welcome it. I hope people will take advantage of that.
Yes, that's how I found you. That's how we got to be friends. So, you know, it's a small world once you're on the gram. So anyway, to wrap up, so it's been thrilling to have you share your knowledge with the listeners about finding the just cause, which is so crucial to practice and can help the listeners achieve success beyond their wildest dreams. I also want to thank our listeners. We appreciate each and every one of you. We cannot do what we do without you. If you like our podcast, kindly share it with your friends and on social media. Also, please don't forget to write a review on iTunes or Google Play. Your reviews will help other doctors and practice owners find us. And until we meet again, wishing all of you a fantastic week ahead.